Mr. Yoder, yes, sir, it's you. Mr. Yoder, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to testify before your committee, and I want to appreciate and thank the members of the committee for their work, and I know it carries you late into the night and may be unappreciated by some of your colleagues, and we're very appreciative of what you do here, and thank you for your steadfast work to sort through all these difficult decisions. Mr. Chairman, I was here a couple of weeks ago on another bill, the cybersecurity bill, and I presented an amendment at that time called the Email Privacy Act. It's an amendment in which all but 2 members of this committee are supportive of, including the chairman and others who agree with the policy. It's a matter of finding germane legislation in which it would move forward. I think this legislation is a much better match than the cybersecurity bill. This is both out of Judiciary Committee. Both deal with similar sections of the Electronic Communications Privacy Act. Both deal with 18 U.S.C. 2709. Both bills deal with protecting privacy and liberty while allowing law enforcement the ability to do their job. And both bills deal with transparency and notice to folks whose information is being sifted through. Just to highlight remembrance, the 1986 law allows law enforcement in the United States of America to collect, store, read, sift through any digital information that's been stored over 180 days. So that means our constituents who are connecting with iCloud or other third-party servers that store their information for them, that's actually availing them to surveillance by the Federal Government. You could probably look at this 1986 law as a FISA court loophole. We can do everything we want in this bill to ensure that the rights of Americans are protected in FISA courts and other areas, but this 1986 law actually allows every government agency just to wait 180 days and then go get the information on their own. This is 263 co-sponsors of this legislation. It's the 3rd most co-sponsored bill. Last time I checked in the United States House, it's a very bipartisan bill. My lead co-sponsor is Jared Polis. It's supported by left groups, right groups, business groups, individual liberty groups. Everyone's sort of united together on this legislation. This is a bill whose time has come, Mr. Chairman. The IRS's position on this is Americans do not have an expectation of privacy in their email boxes. That the 4th Amendment does not apply to digital communication the same way it applies to paper communication. Ask your constituents. Do a survey. Almost every American will tell you, I think my digital communication deserves the same 4th Amendment protections as my paper communication, and that's what we're standing here for today, Mr. Chairman. With all due deference to Chairman Goodlatte, I know the committee's diligently working on this legislation, but this is an idea whose time has come. It is entirely germane to this legislation. It will actually help improve the bill. It will actually help the bill pass in greater numbers. And I think it's the kind of thing that this Congress could take credit for solving a big loophole that has been in existence since 1986. I think we all agree that 1986 is a long time, 29 years now, to update this section of our electronic privacy laws. And so I'd ask the committee for due consideration, and I appreciate the opportunity to be before you today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all 4 of you not only coming back to the committee, but making yourself available with your ideas. I'll go first to you if I can, Mr. Yoder. Mr. Yoder, it's my understanding that you did come up here a couple weeks ago, and as a result of that, perhaps before, but at least as a result of that, you have been engaged with Mr. Goodlatte in trying to work through the processes, perhaps for a bill. Is that correct?
I believe the committee is continuing to look at the legislation.
And you think Mr. Goodlatte's engaged in this, or you're not sure? You're not trying to help or hurt him.
I'm just saying that the legislation as is has the support of the majority members of the committee, majority members of the U.S. House. It's a companion bill in the Senate that has support by both parties. This bill will pass with 400 votes if it's put on the floor of the United States House of Representatives. And I think this is an opportunity to improve this bill with that legislation.
Good. Thank you. Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wherever we end up here tonight and then again tomorrow, I would hope that the take-home message is this is a tremendously important issue, and we're nowhere close to finishing talking about it, irrespective of what happens in this committee and irrespective of what happens on the floor of the House. For Pete's sakes, we could do a discharge petition to get Mr. Yoder's bill to the floor. He has so much support, but he hasn't had his day yet. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back his time. The gentleman from Massachusetts.
No, I want to thank you all for being here. I support all your amendments. And, this is a process committee, and I would hope that we would, given the short time people were given, as Mr. Polis pointed out, to be notified that there could be amendments. I think we ought to have as open a process as possible. And I have great respect for all the chairmen and chairwomen in the House and all the powers that be, but some of these powers that be brought us the Patriot Act to begin with. And with revelation after revelation, people have kind of adjusted their position. I don't see what's wrong with as we try to protect liberty, to also make sure we ensure that democracy occurs here as well. That sometimes the members of the House can make their own decisions, and it may be better than what has come out of the committees thus far, what the agreement is. And I think people ought to, on this issue in particular, given all that we have learned over the years, all that has been abused, and the fact that we learned all this stuff, not because any official came up and told us, but it was all leaked. I think we ought to allow the House to work its will, and that's no disrespect to the committee chairs who are up here before testifying, but I would feel a lot better about this process if all of you were able, and Mr. Polis were able to have your day on the floor. So I hope that we have as open a process as possible, and I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back his time. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, gentlemen. Gentleman from Louisville, Texas, Dr. Birch is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I am grateful that these amendments have come before the committee. I think they're thoughtful amendments. I think they deserve our consideration. I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. The gentleman, judge from Florida, Judge Hastings. Thank you very much. Gentleman yields back his time. Gentleman, Mr. Polis. Gentleman does not seek time. Gentleman, Mr. Stivers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank all these gentlemen for their time as a co-sponsor of the Yoder bill. I know that we've got to get to that bill, and I hope we get to it here, but we'll keep fighting if we don't. And I think the other gentlemen bring up some really good points. Clearly, our work is not done here, so I don't know where we'll end up on this, but I know that we've got a lot more work to do in the days ahead. Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Gentleman, George recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Yoder, I'm at a loss. Said it 2 weeks ago. It's time for your bill to be there. I'm ready to see it in committee. I'm ready to see it here. And I know that doesn't sit well with maybe some, but for me, it's something that needs to be. Had a law school professor one time that lamented the fact of the Fourth Amendment being dead. I don't agree. I think it's not, and I think we need to continue on, and I appreciate you being here. Mr. Chairman, yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. Ms. Byrne. Gentleman does not seek time. I want to thank all four of you for being here.